So how difficult is the AZ-104 exam? It's a key question that people ask. A lot of people want to know how hard the exam's going to be before they actually take it, which is very understandable. Now we're going to answer that question in this video, but I don't want to just give my opinion alone. It's obvious that this is going to differ from person to person how difficult the AZ-104 exam is, depending on your experience or your knowledge of Azure already. So I will give my opinion, but before I do that, I also want to read a few articles, see what people on the internet are saying about how difficult the AZ-104 really is, so you can get a broad idea of how hard the exam is and how much you really have to prepare for it. Now, first things first, let's look at what the Gen AI says about AZ-104. And so I'm kind of just looking at AI overview when you search in Google, and it says the AZ-104 exam, which is for the Microsoft Certified Azure Administrator Associate Certification, mouthful, is generally considered to be of moderate difficulty. What does moderate difficulty even mean? AI is not giving us a good explanation, I can't lie. Let's just look at some Reddit answers. This is going to give us a more human and actual description of how hard the exam is. So this person says, I'm sitting the AZ-104 in September and would like to hear some feedback on how difficult it is compared to something like MTA security, server admin, etc. Really struggling with the virtual network at the moment. Thanks in advance. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this is from 5 years ago. The exam gets updated a lot. In my opinion, it might be a little bit more difficult now, but let's see if this answer could still be helpful. Now, this person says, if this is your first foray in Azure, it's challenging. It's a challenging exam. Virtual networking is a large part of the exam, and the questions are also long and detailed. I didn't find the exam hard per se, but the questions are usually scenario-based and dense with material that may or may not be relevant to the actual question. I think that's a good explanation. This person says it's challenging if it's your first exam in Azure. And of course, if you haven't gone through an Azure exam before, you don't know the system or how you usually go about passing it and how it usually goes, then it's probably gonna be challenging. I can agree with that. Here's another response to that question. This person says, I just passed it, barely in brackets. I'd say it was difficult, but it was my first certification ever, so I don't have much to compare it to. A lot of the questions were, here is a scenario. What would happen if you did X? Which leads to you overthinking the answer. I prepared using exclusively Microsoft Learn tracks, although if I knew how tough it would be, I would have probably studied more. Makes sense. What I'm hearing here is that yes, the exam is difficult, and if you study a little bit more, you can definitely pass it, but it's a difficult exam for some of these people on Reddit, especially if it's the first certification that you've done. Okay, here is another post on Reddit. Let's talk about this one. AZ-104 not to be taken lightly. Wow. Failed my first attempt with a score of 523, and for context, the pass mark is 700. Said there's a lot of base networking and IT knowledge and a lot of product knowledge to know. The exam covers it all and more. Although multiple choice, multiple selection and drag and drop, the question wording is tricky and made to catch you out and confuse. So get good sleep before the exam. That's funny. Now, I like the fact that some people are giving warnings that don't take it lightly. You might think it's really easy, but it's not really easy. One thing I'll mention is that in the past year or so, the AZ-104 exam and other associate level exams, they now allow you to use Microsoft Learn during the exam, which is really good. So if you really don't know stuff, I suggest you mark it for review, and then at the end you come back and you use Microsoft Learn to kind of search for where you can find documents on that, and then go for the right answers using Microsoft Learn. There's a little tab at the left, I think, that you click and you can search on Microsoft Learn. So definitely make full use of that if you're going into the exam. This person says, yep, it's one of the toughest exams out these. You need to cover a lot of stuff. Luckily for me, my strong zones are networking and VM stuff, and AZ backup and monitoring was my weak zone. I did a lot of online tests and almost 2-month prep. Revision is must before the exam day. Interesting. Now, let me kind of give my own view of this exam. Now, firstly, if you've watched my previous video, you will see that I barely passed. Like, I was on the line. I got 700 out of 1,000, which is the exact pass mark. So it would be very silly of me to say, yeah, this is an easy exam. Of course it is not, but how difficult is it really? Now, my personal opinion is that it is a passable exam. It takes quite a bit of study, but the key thing is to keep doing questions, as many questions as you can find in the world. I've actually passed this exam twice. I did it about 3 years ago, it expired, and then I did it again. Now I think this exam may have gotten slightly harder now that they've added Microsoft Learn. I don't know, I'm not saying that as a confirmation, but they do now give you Microsoft Learn to use so you can confirm answers. It feels a bit more like an open test since you can actually search for the answers. So in summary, what I'm saying is that it is somewhat of a difficult exam, and it will definitely be difficult when you compare it to the fundamentals. The fundamentals typically might require like 8 to 12 hours of study, you know, 2 or 3 practice tests here and there, and then you can pass it. Like the AZ-900 and the MS-900 and those things, they are so much easier when you compare the two. So if you're someone who's just done the AZ-900 or the MS-900 or what, SC-900, whatever, and then you're going on to doing the AZ-104, when you compare the two, the 900s are here and the AZ-104 is somewhere up there. It definitely takes so much longer to study for, and you really do have to take it a lot more seriously. That being said, I believe that if you have the right resources and you spend enough time each day studying for the exam, you can definitely pass in 1 to 2 months. For some people with more experience in Azure, it might be shorter. If you have less experience, of course, it might be a little bit longer, but it's all about the commitment to studying for the exam. I do genuinely believe that a lot of you watching this video will go on and pass this exam, and luckily, I've got a video with all the resources that you need to do it. So check that video out.